what the Church of Scientology is so afraid of.
This is
SPTV.
Welcome back, everyone, for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. We are talking about today, Clearwater, Florida, Vice Mayor Mark Bunker putting Scientology on blast in a public meeting for their horrible behavior as a community partner. Quick framing and some context and background for the clip that we're about to watch. It was a pretty short clip, but you guys got to watch this. By the way, I've been scheduling these live streams a little bit in advance instead of going live instantly in the hopes that it would help YouTube push out notifications. I got to tell you guys, it doesn't actually seem to be helping, but you know what does help? Hitting that like button. It does seem to help. Okay, here's the framing. Clearwater, Florida has two different elected boards. One board is the city council. Those are citywide elections, and a Scientologist has never been elected to the city council before. There is another elected board called the Downtown Development Board. Now, in order to be eligible, oh, by the way, for the city council elections, there's something like between 20,000 and 50,000 people who vote in those elections. For the Downtown Development Board, there's only like 200 people who vote in that election. So it's an elected board, it's a public board, but it's absurd. In order to vote for the Downtown Development Board, you have to own property within a very small district, a very small defined downtown district. And even though there's like 770 eligible people to vote in that election, just based on who owns the properties, the voter turnout is so horrible that only like 200 votes are cast in that election. Scientology controls well over half of those votes because they own so much of the property downtown. Therefore, the Downtown Development Board is stacked with Scientologists. There's only one person on that entire board who's not a Scientologist. Now, in the spirit of cooperation, two members of Clearwater's city council sit in as ex officio members on the Downtown Development Board. But they're not actually part of the board. They don't have a vote. They're just there in the spirit of cooperation. Vice Mayor Mark Bunker, who is a famous Scientology critic, you guys know I don't like that word, but people understand what it means. Famous Scientology critic, won an election 2 years ago and is a member of the Clearwater City Council. He is also one of the ex officio members of the Downtown Development Board. And as such, is the only one at these meetings who will actually say anything about Scientology. Remember, the meeting is of a board that is stacked with Scientologists. With that in mind, let's enjoy the following clip. This was just a few days ago at the most recent meeting of Clearwater's Downtown Development Board. Guys, you might have to jack up your sound on this clip. I promise not to interrupt the clip so that the sound doesn't go from low to high to low to high. But you might have to jack up your sound and then turn it back down when the clip is over, because it's kind of quiet for some reason. Here we go. Uh-oh, that's not the one I was trying to play. Here we go.
We had an amazingly successful opening of Cushman Park. It was so exciting to see tens of thousands of people enjoying the park, kids playing on the splash pad, and people, sitting on the lawn waiting for the 4th of July fireworks and coming to see concerts at the Sound. It was so impressive, and it gives us a real chance here. This is a real turning point for the city. And I think that's going to continue to be a great success. The only thing that we have to worry about now are the Scientology property owners who are holding up putting businesses in those buildings. And if there's anyone in the city who
That's not true. That is not true. Do you have evidence of that?
Excuse me?
I have personal clients that have tried to rent those from business owners that were not part of the church. So that is not a factual statement.
Well, those folks.
Please give us specifics if you're going to say that. That is really not okay.
Well, the vast majority of the properties are owned by Scientology.
Give me the exact addresses and I'll verify that, because I have clients that have gone. Please do that.
Well, Mr. Agami, for instance, was asking for $750,000 up front for somebody to move into one of his properties. That's insane.
That's not true.
And this is the type of thing that you should be trying to talk to him about, because Lord knows I can't get within 10 feet of any. But who better to address this than the folks here on the board? Okay. And that's all I'll say on that.
Very unprofessional, but thank you.
They always try to get in the last shot whenever Mark Bunker says something. Now, I'm going to show you guys who that woman was who took it upon herself to do David Miscavige's job for him and try to speak down to Mark Bunker in that meeting, because she knows Miscavige watches all these meetings. The person who just spoke up was Terri Novitsky, very well-known person in Scientology. Terri and her husband, Norm Novitsky, have a large ownership share of a relatively local company called Nationwide Title Clearing. They make absolutely tons and tons of money, have donated millions upon millions of dollars. They've also donated their children to Scientology's Sea organization. Terri Novitsky is a true soldier of David Miscavige, and she is also one of the people who has been helping Scientology buy up hundreds of parcels around Clearwater to try and sabotage the city's development. This is an article I'm showing you here in the Tampa Bay Times starring Terri Novitsky, and the guy next to Terri Novitsky is Ray Cassano, who also happens to be another one of the members of that downtown development board. Which meeting we were just watching. So let's see. Scientology adds to its majority on this Clearwater downtown board. Yeah. So this article here was actually just about Terri being voted onto the board, but there's a whole other article that was published about Terri and her husband Norm about what they've been doing behind the scenes to help Scientology purchase tons of property to sabotage the city of Clearwater. Because what Scientology and Scientologists do when they buy these properties, we're talking about prime commercial downtown properties, both in Clearwater's downtown district and slightly north in what they call the North Marina district. They buy these properties and they leave them empty. They leave them vacant. They don't put anybody in them. And it is to sabotage economic development in downtown Clearwater. David Miscavige does not want non-Scientologists in downtown Clearwater. He does not want non-Scientologists around their flag land base. It's not that Scientologists are against economic activity or restaurants or bars or fashion shops or anything like that. If there were enough Scientologists in Clearwater, Florida, to open up all those businesses and support the economic activity of all those businesses, Miscavige would actually snap his fingers and make it happen. The problem is there are so few Scientologists, even in Clearwater, Florida. There aren't enough Scientologists to even keep Scientologist-owned businesses open in downtown Clearwater. The only businesses that thrive downtown are the ones that are supported and patronized by non-Scientologists. There's one or two exceptions to that rule, but they are the exceptions that prove the rule. And so because Miscavige doesn't have the numbers needed to create open support, a thriving economic hub in downtown Clearwater, he wants to keep everyone away. He doesn't want non-Scientologists around. He feels unsafe around the flag land base, knowing the more non-Scientologists are around. Non-Scientologists who are going to be watching the Scientology in the Aftermath show, who are going to be watching SPTV, who know that Shelly Miscavige is missing. I'll tell you, do you guys know this? Sea Org members do not know Shelly Miscavige is missing. Do you guys know that? Do you guys actually realize that? Scientologists, staff members, Sea Org members do not know Shelly Miscavige is missing because they do not know who Shelly Miscavige is. That is a fact. If anyone's got questions about that, I'm happy to take it up, in a Q&A portion, but that is a fact. There's something else I wanted to mention here. Oh, do you guys notice at the end, Mark Bunker said, because God forbid, I can't get within 10 feet of any of you. There is a, what do they call it? An injunction that was put in place many years ago, probably close to 20 years ago at this point. And this stems back in the days when there was something in downtown Clearwater called the Lisa McPherson Trust. You guys should Google it and read up a little bit about it. In some ways, it was sort of a precursor or a forerunner to what we have now with the Aftermath Foundation. It's not a perfect analogy, but it's a decent analogy. And the Lisa McPherson Trust was staffed by a combination of former Scientologists, former Sea Org members, and some activists who'd never been in Scientology. And their goal was to bring more exposure to the fact that Lisa McPherson had died in the Fort Harrison Hotel, and to help Scientologists who were leaving Scientology. Mark Bunker was one of the people associated with that movement. And Scientology went to war with these people, set them up, framed them in various ways, created conflicts so that they could file charges against people and things like that. And one of the things that stemmed out of that time period was an injunction preventing certain people associated with the Lisa McPherson Trust from coming within 10 feet of a Scientologist. But the injunction went both ways. The injunction also said that Scientologists have to stay 10 feet away from Mark Bunker. And Scientology always talks about this injunction as if it's a one-way injunction, that Mark Bunker is such a terrible guy, he's been ordered to stay away from Scientologists. But Scientologists have also been ordered to stay 10 feet away from him. So that's what he was referring to there. I also wanted to point out, it just tickles me every time I have an opportunity to point out that Clearwater, Florida probably has the highest Scientologist per capita number of any city in the world. There's probably more Scientologists in Los Angeles, but per capita, there's more Scientologists per capita in Clearwater, Florida. Even then, there's not very many. And yet still, a Scientologist has never been able to get elected to Clearwater City Council. The best that they can do is stack a board where there's only 200 votes cast for it. This is how bad Scientology's reputation is, even in the city that most people think Scientology controls. I mean, let's do a test. You guys watching this video, were you under the impression that Scientology basically runs Clearwater? Now, in some respects, you could say they run Clearwater because their influence and their money has purchased them, influence in the halls of power. And to an extent, there is truth to that. I just do like pointing out that Scientology's reputation is so horrible and toxic and trash-worthy that even in a city most people think they run, it is absolute career, I want to say career suicide, political suicide, to have open and known connections to Scientology. And that is if you're running for election. If you have any history of actually being involved in Scientology, you have a 0% chance of winning an election in Clearwater or in the county or in the state. And I just love pointing that out. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have influence. Mayor Brian Ongst, who's an interim mayor, he's filling in because our last mayor, quitter Frank Hibbard, resigned in the middle of a meeting. Brian Ongst's son, Brian Ongst Jr., is one of the guys who's literally lining his pockets with Scientology's money, selling all of these properties to Scientology and prominent Scientologists like Terri Novitsky and Moises Agami. You have Lena Teixeira on the city council, who's literally the first council member in the history of Clearwater to win her election specifically because of the support that she got from Scientology and because all Scientologists were ordered to vote for her. That's because I was running against her. Kathleen Beckman is on the city council. Now, Kathleen Beckman has no history of being influenced by Scientology, but just due to the sheer element of wokeness, a particular element of wokeness that Kathleen embraces, she refuses to criticize Scientology in any meaningful manner. I'm not talking about for their beliefs. I'm not even talking about for how they treat their own members. I'm talking about for how they treat the city of Clearwater. You'll never hear Kathleen Beckman say a word about that. David Albritton is on the city council. Now, David Albritton, out of everyone up there other than Mark Bunker, is the only one who every now and then will say something approaching a crossword about Scientology's behavior as a community partner. But at the end of the day, it really is Mark Bunker and only Mark Bunker who is up there calling Scientology out for their straight up sabotage of economic development and activity in Clearwater. And it's sad. And the other council members should be ashamed of themselves for how silent they've been on this issue. And the fact that Mark Bunker is the only one who speaks on this issue is why it's so important he does win re-election. Mark Bunker's campaign for re-election will start in about a couple months. I think it's like sometime in mid-September. It's a 6-month campaign cycle. The elections will be in March. And I can tell you, Clearwater's political establishment will be pulling out all of the stops to defeat Mark Bunker. For one of the first times in Clearwater's history, in Mark's election 2 years ago, it was a 5-way race. That's never happened before. It's never happened before. Too many people in Clearwater's political establishment thought they were decided to throw their hat into the ring. The Clearwater political establishment will not allow 5 people to run in the next race. And if 5 people had not been running in the last race, Mark Bunker wouldn't have won. He'll tell you that himself. The statistics show he won by the slimmest of margins in a 5-way race. The next time, it's going to be harder, and he's going to need more help, more money, more postcards, more door knocks, and it will be very important that he gets as much help as possible. And I'll do everything I can with this channel to help him in that in a variety of ways. So there you go, guys. That's what I got on this one for now. Let me check super chats real quick. Bill Kennedy, thank you very, very much. Poe on the go. Hey, Aaron, thoughts of running for office again? There's a 0% chance I will ever run for office again. Thank you for asking, though. Stacy, have you found any Scientology spies trying to get into the Aftermath Foundation to cause trouble? Mark is so brave. So there was something that happened pretty early on in the life of the Aftermath Foundation, where it wasn't someone who was sent in to cause trouble. It was someone Scientology managed to flip. It's a local Scientologist by the name of Morgan Bradham. And his mother is named Carolyn Bradham, and she owns a business in downtown Clearwater called, oh my God, Carolyn's Kitchen. She might even have 2 locations near downtown, Carolyn's Kitchen. And what happened is Morgan Bradham had been declared a suppressive person, and his family had disconnected from him, and they basically left him, just left him to fend for himself. Morgan was homeless, didn't have a car, was living on a friend's couch. And the Aftermath Foundation helped him get a car, helped him get a job, helped him get a place to live, helped him in many other ways. Morgan actually even appeared, filmed an episode of Leah Remini's Scientology in the Aftermath, where he told his whole story, his horrible story of being abused, physically abused, like permanently left with permanent physical damage of a very serious nature. While a staff member at the Tampa org. He told this entire story in an episode. He and I both flew out to LA to film this episode. The whole thing was shot and in the can. And he even told a story on the show. He said this on camera. All the footage exists of how Scientology had approached him through his mother and offered him a deal to turn on the Aftermath Foundation, say horribly false things about the foundation, about me personally, and to say that he'd been offered money and all this kind of stuff, and that they had offered him this deal, and that if he would take the deal, he would get undeclared and he would be able to talk to his friends and his family again. He said this on camera. Well, guess what happened after Morgan shot the episode? He took the deal. He took the deal. He filed all sorts of police reports against me, the Aftermath Foundation, the show. It was they had to throw the show in the trash can. Maybe $100,000 of production costs. You know, it's not expensive to film a show, plus travel and everything. So Scientology was able to flip Morgan Bradham to try and screw the Aftermath Foundation. Now, at the end of the day, it didn't really cause us any damage. It just caused a lot of wasted time and wasted money. Plus, do you think Morgan Bradham ever paid the Aftermath Foundation back for the thousands upon thousands of dollars of assistance that we gave him? No, of course not. And we didn't bother spending the time to take any legal action because we can't be bothered. We don't have time to waste on stuff like that. We're just interested in moving forward. So even in that case, I will tell you, I do not believe for a second that Morgan was a spy when he was sent in the first place. I guess there are those who will say he was, but it's all speculation, guys. I'm the one who was personally dealing with Morgan. My opinion, and by the way, it wasn't just Morgan. It was another local Scientologist named Cinjin Nichols, whose grandmother is Cheryl Festa. If you're a Scientologist in Clearwater, you know who Cheryl Festa is. You know who Cinjin Nichols is. So Cinjin Nichols and Morgan Bradham are 2 really despicable local Scientologists who very much participated in Scientology's effort to try and seriously hurt the Aftermath Foundation, to try to seriously hurt me, and to hurt the Scientology and the Aftermath show. And I guess you could say they did hurt the show as far as time and resources wasted. But that's about as That's about as egregious as anything Scientology has been able to do to the Aftermath Foundation at this point. Interesting shit, huh? Thank you for the question. All right, everybody, that is all I have on this for now. Much more to come. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Definitely hit that like button, please. It really does help out. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thanks to everyone who watches until the very end, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, oh, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.